أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على خير خلقه العبد المؤيد والرسول المسدد حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد، وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين وصحابته المنتجبين، واللعن الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى قيام يوم الدين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله، وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك وأناخت برحلك، عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. قال الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: من عمل صالحا من ذكر أو أنثى فلنحيينه حياة طيبة ولنجزينهم أجرهم بأحسن ما كانوا يعملون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Muslims who live in the West, who migrated from the Middle East, from their home countries, and came to the West. They came to America, to Europe, to Australia, to New Zealand, and have been living in the West for years. We can put them into three different categories, three different kinds. The first kind are the Muslims who completely assimilated. They forgot about their faith, they forgot about their religion, and they became completely Western. Their life is westernized in the complete sense of the meaning, whether it's positive or negative. Complete sort of assimilation. So there's no going back home. And whatever came from home stayed at home. Faith, religion, school of thought, culture, language. Even names were changed. Last names were changed. Clothing was changed. A complete change in culture. This group saw that there's a clash in cultures. There's a clash in civilizations, so to speak. And that you could either become an American or European, Dutch, English, Australian, or you remain a Muslim. And they chose to be the first because they saw that Islam, being a Muslim, being a practicing Muslim, is incompatible with being American, is incompatible with being European. So they chose to be European. They chose to be American. This is the first group. The second group, they moved here and they also saw a clash of culture, a clash of civilizations. They could either become American or European or Australian, or they remain true to their faith, true to their religion. They remain Muslim. So they chose the second rather than the first. They saw that to be a Muslim, to be a true Muslim, you cannot integrate in American society or in European society. You cannot live an American life or a Western life or a European life. You have to practice your faith, and there's not much you could do. You have to disconnect from society. You have to disconnect from your surroundings, your neighbors, your friends, the society that you live in. And a lot of people from category number 2 end up going back home because they feel there's a clash. They can't work out the two. They can't be both American and Muslim. And they can't be good in both. You can either be a good Muslim or a good American. A good Muslim or a good European. You can't enjoy being the two. So a lot of them, they either live a life of contradiction and a life of torment, a sense of guilt of being a good Muslim but living in the West, or they end up, they pack their bags and they go back home. They go back to Lebanon, to Iraq, to Iran, to Pakistan, to their countries. And then you have a third group, a middle group, a group that sees that there is absolutely no contradiction between being a good Muslim and a good American, or being a good Muslim and a good European. Living a life of Islam and living a Western life is completely compatible. You could be a good Muslim. You could abide by Islamic rules and laws, and at the same time live the American dream, live a happy life, a life of assimilation in the West, but without forgetting your faith and without forgetting your religion. You might ask that, does group number 3 exist? Do they really exist? Absolutely. They exist. And we know many of them. It's very much possible to live a successful Muslim life in the West without giving up your faith and religion, nor having to feel embarrassed and ashamed of living your normal life in the West, in America, or in Europe, or other parts of the Western world. Is this possible? Absolutely. And tonight, on this very important night, we will discuss the steps in how to live a successful Muslim life in the West. To be a good Muslim in the West. To gain the best of both worlds. To win dunya and akhirah. Is this possible? It's very much possible. And today, or tonight, we will discuss this, inshallah. Step number 1, to living a successful Muslim life in the West. Seek a good education. To seek a good education is the Muslim thing to do, and it's the Western thing to do. First of all, there is no religion, like the religion of Islam, that pushes its adherents and followers to seek knowledge more than Islam. You don't find this in Judaism, you don't find this in Christianity. The emphasis, the amount of emphasis put on seeking knowledge, gaining knowledge, to seek an education. The Quran is full of verses that push us to gain knowledge. يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah raises the status of those who believe and those who have knowledge, have attained knowledge, or those who seek knowledge. وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ. Those who have been given knowledge or gained knowledge, Allah raises their status. هَلْ يَسْتَوِي الَّذِينَ يَعْلَمُونَ وَالَّذِينَ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. Do those who know are equal to those who don't know? Those who are educated, those who have knowledge, are they equal to those who don't know and do not have an education? There's a hadith recorded by both schools of thought, the Sunni school of thought and the Shi'i school of thought. It's a numerous report. We call it in Arabic tawatur, ila hadd tawatur, in which Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam states, طلب العلم فريضة. طلب العلم فريضة على كل مسلم. To seek knowledge is an obligation upon every Muslim. And in some narrations, كل مسلم ومسلمة. It's an obligation upon every Muslim man and every Muslim woman to seek knowledge. The famous hadith by Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, اطلب العلم من المهد إلى اللحد. Seek knowledge from cradle to grave. It's an ongoing process. There should never be a time when we stop seeking knowledge, or we've reached a position in which we've sufficed. We have enough knowledge. No, seek knowledge. And another hadith says, اطلب العلم ولو بالصين. Seek knowledge even if it's in China. Travel to seek knowledge. Even if you feel lonely, even if you have to live in a country by yourself, even if you have to leave your hometown and to leave family and to live in poverty, Islam says go and seek knowledge. There's no other religion that emphasizes on seeking knowledge like Islam. And so too in the West, you're given the opportunity to seek knowledge and to get an education. In the West, there's a value to knowledge. There's a value to education. That's why there's an abundance of universities. There's abundance of colleges. In the West, we have the best universities and we have the best colleges. Our youth living in the West, Muslim youth in the West, should aim to get entrance to the best of the universities, to the Ivy Leagues, starting from Harvard to Stanford to Yale to Berkeley to Princeton, to the best of the universities. The doors are open. There's an opportunity, and there's no discrimination. But we live at a time where college entrance, to some degree, of course, there is a discrimination against some groups, unfortunately, like African Americans and blacks. But for others, there might not be discrimination. There's an opportunity for you to apply and to get accepted at these Ivy Leagues. Apply. Aim high. Let us teach our youth to aim high when it comes to education. Don't settle for a university close by to your home because you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave your family. No, on the contrary, aim high. Aim to get into the best universities in the country. It's possible. Others have done it, and so can you. We should push our children and encourage them. And once they're into that university, we should push them to get a higher education. What do I mean by this? I mean that a bachelor's degree is not enough. Let's push our youth to get a master's degree, to get a PhD. This is a cornerstone into living a successful life in the West. That you equip yourself with the right amount of knowledge, with the right amount of education. You can't live a successful life in the West without a proper education. You can't. Otherwise, you'll end up on the welfare system. You'll end up getting money from the government, or having to go back home, or having to get loans. Get a proper education. You can get the best education in the West. Let us be in the habit, as parents, to teach our children the culture of aiming high, to go to the best universities. Let's push them. I know some parents that don't want to send their kids off to school abroad, to other states, because they want to monitor them, control them. Yes, I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, if you instill in your children the sense of responsibility when they're young, when they're in high school, when they go off to college, they're already responsible. They will know what is right, what is wrong, and they will learn on their own. Sometimes a person learns on his own or on her own. Let them be responsible. Let them travel. Let them live, on their own to gain experience, and they will learn what to do, what is right and what is wrong. But let them get an education. It all starts off with a proper education. You cannot, and I cannot emphasize on this enough, you cannot live a successful life in the West without having a proper education. And our communities, we should have scholarships for the bright students, for the bright kids in our communities. We send them off to Harvard, to Yale, to Berkeley, to Stanford. And we provide them with scholarships. We could do this at every Islamic center, at every Husseiniya in the West. We put a budget for the brightest of our students, and we encourage them to go to the best universities, and those who get accepted, we pay for them. We provide them with scholarships. Our communities, alhamdulillah, in the West, they're well off, they're well to do. We could do this. When we encourage our kids, other kids will be encouraged. And other communities will be encouraged. And before you know it, we'll have hundreds of our children in Ivy League universities, receiving the best of educations. And when you have the best education, you'll have the best of jobs, and you'll get the best positions. You have to think of it this way. This is number one. This is the first step. Step number two. Now that you're off to college, and you've left home, and you don't have your parents to monitor you, you could go out, you could stay up as much as you want, you could go wherever you want, you could befriend whoever you want. Here is when you start monitoring yourself. Here, your parents will pass on the torch to you. Your parents at 18, they've done a wonderful job in raising you Islamically. They've raised you in the best of matters, now they pass on the torch to you. Now they tell you, you have to take care of yourself. Not just financially, not just educationally, but you have to take care of yourself spiritually and religiously. You monitor yourself. You be your own guide. You be your own mother and father. Because when you leave the house and you move out of state and you go to another state or city to study, there'll be a lot of temptations. Now you have freedom. Now you're all on your own. No one can see you. No one can judge you. No one can hold you accountable other than Allah Azza wa Jal. You have to be careful where you go, where you invited, who you befriend, how do you spend your time. These years should be years for you. You don't waste them in anything other than seeking knowledge and seeking a proper education. Yes, you need to relax once in a while. You come back home to see your parents, to see your family members and your siblings, but don't be distracted. College years are the years of distraction. You're away from home, and there's lots of temptations. You have to be careful that these temptations don't take you away, don't deviate you from your goal. And that if your parents are not watching, Allah is still watching. Allah didn't go anywhere. The same Allah that was watching you back home, He's still watching you at university, at college. You monitor yourself. You be your own judge, and you avoid temptations. Is this possible? Absolutely, it's possible. If we feel a sense of responsibility, and that we know that Allah Azza wa Jal is monitoring us, and He's watching us. Because when you go, there'll be a world of temptations. You'll see lots of opportunities, all kinds of opportunities. You have to be very careful that you don't get distracted from Allah, that shaitan does not distract you, and you don't forget your goal. Your goal is there to seek knowledge and then come back home. Step number 3. In the West, to live a successful life, you have to be a hard worker. You can't stay up all night and sleep in all day and not work and expect others to provide for you and to provide your sustenance. That's impossible. Any person that wants to live a successful life in the West has to work, has to produce, has to achieve, has to be a hard worker, has to have a job from 8 to 5, from 8 to 6. I don't know what hours it is. Unfortunately, we have many Muslims that migrate from the East. They come to the West and they rely on the government that they live in. They want welfare. They want income support. They want financial support. They want medical benefits. Some of them go to great lengths. They even break the law or claim disability just to get a couple of dollars or money for rent. Such people will never live a successful life in the West. If your intention is to live in the West and benefit financially from the government, receive an income, receive a check every month, and financial benefits, and not work, you will not have a successful life in the West. If you want to live in the West, you have to be a hard worker. You have to train yourself, put it in your mind that you work, you achieve, you get a job, you produce, you make money. And this is what Islam encourages us. This does not conflict with Islam. Absolutely not. Islam encourages us to work, to produce, to be financially capable and financially independent. The hadith says, Al-kaddu ala ayalih kal-mujahidi fi sabilillah. He who goes out and works and makes money and brings money back home to his family, it's as if he's fighting for the sake of Allah. It's as if he's in the battlefield protecting Islam and protecting your country and protecting your land. One day Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wa he came in the masjid, he came in his mosque, and he saw two brothers. He saw one who would sit in the mosque all day and fast. He was fasting, and he'd pray all day and recite Quran. But at the time of iftar, his brother, who wasn't in the mosque, who would go out and work all day, he'd bring food and put in front of his brother. So one was a worshipper all day and the other was working all day. Rasulullah looked at the two brothers and he said, you know who's the true worshipper? It's the one that's working. The one who works is the worshipper, not the one who prays and fasts all day long, but he expects others to take care of him. This is not true worship. You see, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam tells us the essence of worship. He gives a new meaning to worship. Those who pray all day, pray all night, and fast all year long, and they expect others to take care of them, this is not worship. This is not true obedience of Allah. Obedience of Allah is to work, is to rely on yourself and not rely on others. Is not to be a burden on others and to be dependent on others. True worship is to be independent financially and to help others, not that you expect help from others. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one day he saw a gardener, a farmer and a gardener. He saw him in Medina. His hands were dirty. His hands were dirty from working in the soil. Rasulullah held those hands and he kissed them and he embraced them. He said, these are hands that Allah loves. These are working hands. These are hands that achieve. These are hands that make money, that bring you honor and grace. When you make money, you earn people's respect and you earn Allah's respect. You're independent. You don't put your hands forward to others. Rasulullah said, these are hands that Allah loves. Allah wants us to be financially independent, to make money, to work. This is what Islam wants from us. And this is what we could achieve in the West. If you want to live a successful life in the West, get a job, and not just any job, but the best of jobs. If there's two jobs that you can make, that you could get, one job pays mediocre, and another job that pays more, and you have the capability of fulfilling the first job, take it. Make more money. Take the better job. Fill the best positions. Let's get the best of jobs and not be lazy. Even if it requires more work, extra work, less sleep, less rest, but it produces more, you'll be achieving more, pick the better job. Be the best that you can be. This is what Islam wants from us. Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam says, رحم الله عبدا عمل عملا فأتقنه. May Allah have mercy, may Allah bless the person who does a job and does it correctly, does it the best. أتقنه. When you don't suffice for a mediocre job or mediocre work, but you be the best you could be. In the West, hopefully there's no discrimination. No one, in some parts of the world, they ask you, are you Muslim or are you Christian? In some parts in the Muslim world, they'll ask you, are you Sunni or are you Shi'i? As soon as you say you're Shi'i, your chances of getting the job decreases, even if you're the best in your field. Even if you're the best doctor, you're the best professor, but you're Shi'i, you will lose your chance to gain that position. But in America, no one asks you if you're Muslim or Christian to get a job. No one will ask you, are you a Sunni or a Shi'i? No one will ask you, who do you follow? Which marja' do you follow? None of this matters. It's the land of opportunity. Anyone who has a decent job and is capable of working and could go out and work will be accepted, will be hired. That is why we do have Muslim professionals in the workforce. We have some of the most professional Muslims, the most successful Muslims out there. And they are proof that it is possible. You could be a successful Muslim. You could be a religious Muslim, God-fearing, righteous, and at the same time a law-abiding citizen, and at the same time living a very successful life. And you choose the best job. It's a line of opportunity. You could be whatever you want to be as long as it's halal. You could be whatever you want to be and be the best that you could be. You want to be a journalist? Go ahead, but be the best journalist. You want to go into economics? Go ahead, but be the best you could be. You want to become an athlete? That's fine. Be the best athlete that you could be, so that you inspire others like you, young Muslims like you. You show them that it's possible to be a good Muslim and a good athlete and a successful athlete and a successful American and a successful European. You want to go into politics, you want to go into business. As long as you remain restricted to Islamic values and Islamic laws and rulings, the sky's the limit. Go out and work, go out and achieve. Islam doesn't tell you have to pray all day and worship all night and fast every day. If you can fast, that's good. But if fasting, other than Ramadan of course, if fasting hinders you from working, no, go and achieve, go and work, go and bring money back to the house. Go and raise a family and provide for your family. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا. The Quran says, and don't. وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Try to achieve a good place in the hereafter. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيا. And do not forget this life as well. Work for both dunya and akhirah. Number 4, steps to living a successful Muslim life in the West. Number 4, live the American dream. Buy the best house. Buy the best car. Live in your dream house. Eat the best food. Go to the best restaurants. You could wear the nicest clothing. You could go on vacations. Enjoy yourself. You could have a summer home. Live the American dream. No one stops you. No one says this is haram. No one says it is haram to live in a fancy house or a luxurious house. Absolutely not. No one says it is haram to eat delicious food, good food, as long as it's halal food. No one says it's haram to buy expensive clothing or to wear a nice watch or drive a nice car. You can live the American dream. You can do this. You can enjoy yourself. As long as you're not breaking any Islamic law, you're not doing anything haram, you can enjoy yourself. قُلْ مَنْ حَرَّمَ زِينَةَ اللَّهِ الَّتِي أَخْرَجَ لِعِبَادِهِ وَالطَّيِّبَاتِ مِنَ الرِّزْقِ. Say, who has forbidden us from the ornaments, from the beauties of Allah Azza wa Jal? There's beautiful homes and you can afford it. Go purchase a nice house for you and your family and your children. Live in a nice house. Drive a nice car. You don't have to buy a used car, a beat up car. No, drive a fancy car. You could drive the best of course cars for you and your family and your children. We have a hadith that says a rich person who is grateful, that lives a nice life and allows others to live a nice life, who spends money on others, is better than a poor person who is patient. Someone who's poor but says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To be rich but grateful is better than being poor but patient. No, go out, be rich, make money, earn your living, be the richest you can be. But don't forget faith. Don't forget religion. And don't waste. We shouldn't waste. The Quran says, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. Eat what you want and drink what you want. However, don't be wasteful. Don't be wasteful. How much can you eat? Eat that much. Don't buy more than you can handle. But don't buy more than what you want. Otherwise it will be wasting. You need 2 cars, buy 2 cars. But when you buy 4 or 5, that's wasting. That's being lavish. That's what Qarun had. He was being lavish. All the money that he was spending on himself that he did not need, he was being crazy. And that's why he perished. وَلَا تُبَذِّرْ تَبْذِيرًا إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. Do not be wasteful, because those who waste are the brothers of shaitan. Step number 5, don't forget your spiritual well-being. What do I mean by this? We said in step number 4, live the American dream. Here we say, but do not live in a dream. Live the American dream, but don't live in a dream. Don't forget reality. Don't forget that we're here in this world temporarily. And sooner or later we will be told to pack our bags and leave. But unfortunately our bags stay. All travelers, their bags go with them, but there's one journey where our bags stay. Own whatever you want, but don't let anything own you. Own the things that you want and the things that you need, but make sure that they don't own you. Make sure that they don't take control over you and over your mind and over your heart. This is very important. Live the American dream. Live a nice life. Live in the fanciest homes and drive the fanciest cars. But don't forget your nafs. Don't forget your spiritual well-being. Don't forget that you have a nafs to take care of and not just a body. You take care of your body. You relax. You let your body sleep on the best mattresses in the best homes, but take care of your nafs. Your nafs needs to be fed as well. Don't forget your mosque. Don't forget your masjid. Don't forget your Husseiniya. Don't forget Salatul Jumu'ah. Don't forget Thursday nights to recite Dua Kumail. These are all things that you will need to live a successful life in the West. It's not all about materialism. You could own whatever you want, but at the same time, don't neglect your nafs. Your nafs requires nourishment. Your nafs requires admonishment. You need to hear a word of advice. We all do. I need to hear a word of advice every once in a while. We need to be reminded that this life is temporary, that we are here for a certain amount of time, and we need to make use of it and benefit from it for akhirah and for dunya, and then we're told to leave. We have to be reminded of this. We cannot become arrogant and say, I no longer need to go to the mosque. The mosque is for the poor. The mosque is for those who cannot afford to live the way I live. This is nonsense. Be rich, live the American life, but don't be arrogant. We shouldn't become arrogant. Materialism is not enough to bring us happiness. Don't think that by living the American dream and you have the best house and you have the best car and you have all the money in the world and you have a vacation home that you'll be happy. Materialism is part of it. Some of our happiness comes from materialism. The other half comes from our nafs. Our nafs has to be happy. Our nafs has to be well fed and well nourished. We need spirituality in our life. We need religion in our life. We need admonishment and advice in our life. We need to be reminded of the akhirah. Otherwise, materialism is not enough. Materialism won't buy you happiness. It's spirituality. You will need spirituality. Otherwise, you will not gain happiness. That is why we see a lot of people in the West. They have all the money in the world, but they'll commit suicide, or they're not happy, or they're on drugs, or they're on alcohol. You think they're living the dream, but they're not. Why? Because all they cared for was materialism, and they forgot about spirituality. They forgot about their nafs. They forgot about their akhirah. They forgot about their spiritual well-being. We should not let materialism take over us. We should not get lost into materialism. We should not let life fool us. This is important to live a successful life in the West. Don't get fooled by life in the West or the materialistic life in the West. There's another life waiting for us. Whether you live in the East or the West, we will all end up in the same grave, and we'll all wear the same shrouds, and we will all be washed before our death and put into that grave. We should never forget this. This should always be on our mind. Number 6, to live a successful life in the West, you should make your family and your children a priority. This is very important. And what do I mean by priority? A lot of times we care for our children, we put them in the best schools, we get them tutors, private tutors, we put them in the best after school programs, soccer, football, IT, swimming lessons, karate lessons, and we take care of them physically, we take care of them materialistically, we make sure that our kids have whatever they want. They wear the best clothing, they wear the best shoes, they have all the latest equipment. But we also have to make sure that their spiritual well-being is taken care of. We have to make sure that we raise them in a proper Islamic manner, with Islamic values. If we could put them in an Islamic school, we should put them in an Islamic school. If we can't, then there's Saturday school, or Sunday school, or Friday night youth programs, or summer camps, or winter camps. This is important. Your children are a priority. There are some, they think that just by putting their kids in the best schools and buying them the best gadgets and buying them the best clothing, they've fulfilled their responsibility towards those children. No, my dear friends, you've only taken care of, you've taken care of them materialistically, but not spiritually. It's like a car. We take the car to the car wash and we wash it from the outside, but we neglect the inside. From the outside, people will assume this is a beautiful car because they see from the outside, it's nice, it's clean. But as soon as they open the doors, they will see the mess inside. We have to make sure that that doesn't happen to us and it doesn't happen to our children. We shouldn't get immersed into our business and our jobs, into living the American dream by neglecting our children, by not seeing them, by not spending time with them, not going out with them, not having discussions with them, not being their friends, by not seeing what are their challenges, what are the problems that they face. This is very important. Your children are a priority. Number 7, do not forget your identity. You can live in America for 50 years. You can live in Europe for 50 years. You can live in Australia for 60 years. But don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget your religion. Don't forget your heritage. Don't forget your culture. Don't forget your language. Don't forget your names and your last names and your forefathers and your family tree and your lineage. Don't forget your manners. You know, there's a lot of youth, they come to America or the West and they forget their culture, they forget their manners. A guest comes, we don't even stand for them. We sit on the couch. When a guest comes home, we don't greet them at the door. We sit at home, or we sit on the couch. When they leave, we don't walk them to the door. We call them by their first name. We don't respect the elders. We call them by their first name. Or we walk in front of the elders. This is wrong. This means we're forgetting our manners. We're forgetting our adab. We're forgetting our akhlaq. We've picked up manners from others. Be American. Be English. Be Dutch. Be Australian. But this doesn't mean you forget who you are. Or you forget the language. You forget the language. You don't speak your language anymore. Arabic, Farsi, Urdu, Gujarati. You forget the language. Why? This means that you're forgetting your identity. You're forgetting your heritage. You're forgetting who you are and where you came from and what you represent. Don't forget this. Just because you live in the West, it doesn't mean that you forget the East and you're disconnected from the East. No. Visit your countries. Go to them. Go to your family members. Know the history of your country. Know where you come from. Don't change your names and your last names. This doesn't mean just because we live in America that means we forget all about our heritage and our custom and our culture. Let's take pride in our names. Let's take pride in our last names. Let's take pride in our language and our culture. Don't forget your identity. You could be a Lebanese American. Just because you're American, it doesn't mean that you're no longer Lebanese or Iraqi or Iranian or Pakistani or Indian or Khoja or... No, you could be a Lebanese American. You could be an Iraqi American. You could be an Iranian Dutch. You could be Iraqi Dutch. We joined between two cultures and two civilizations. We're the children of the East and the West. We shouldn't forget who we are and where we came from. We shouldn't forget our lineage and our heritage. Number 8, you want to live a successful life in the West? Be involved politically. You live here. You pay your taxes here. The laws here concern you. The domestic laws, the domestic policies, and the foreign policies. If you are a law-abiding Muslim in the West, that means you're paying taxes. You can have a say in how your taxes are being spent, domestically and abroad. You can have a say. We live in the West in countries that are democratic. There's no dictatorships. You can choose your political leaders. You can have a say in how your tax dollars are spent. Unfortunately, there's a lot of Muslims that don't vote. They are not politically engaged. They could care less what happens in politics. Hence, politicians in the West, they don't cater to Muslims because they know we don't vote. We could care less to vote. And we don't sponsor political campaigns. Imagine if we were to vote, how powerful we'd be. Imagine if we were to sponsor political campaigns, how powerful we'd be. Our voice would be heard. And there would be no discrimination against us. Imagine if we had Muslim political organizations, if we had lobbies, and we'd financially support Muslim political organizations, or we supported political campaigns. Our voice would be heard because money speaks louder than words. When you sponsor a politician, he'll make sure that your word is heard in the Senate, in Congress, in the White House, in the government. We need to be politically engaged and active. No one will come and hand us our rights on a plate. Rights are taken. They're not given. We need to fight. Look at the Muslim ban. How long can this go on? Look at the ban on the niqab in some countries. Look at the ban on halal food, on dhabiha in some countries. And this could happen in your country and in other countries. Our rights can be taken away from us. What do? We just say a dua and we say La ilaha illallah, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. We need to take action, political action. Look at the discrimination in some places in the West, in the workforce against Muslims, where there's hate crimes against Muslims. We can do something about it. If you care for your well-being in the West, if you want to live a successful life in the West, you have to be politically engaged. Number 9, support your religious and charitable organizations. If Allah has bestowed upon you with wealth, you're well off, you've done good, now give back to the community. Give back to the organizations that are helping you. Give to your mosque. Give to your Husseiniya. These are places where you can find in for spirituality, for spiritual well-being. Give back to your mosque. We should not be in the habit of taking, but also giving back. Let's have the culture of giving back to the community and not just giving. If you want quality services, you have to help out. You have to give. Your mosque is a must. It's where you learn your faith. It's where your children will learn their faith. It's where your grandchildren will learn their faith. It's where you meet other Muslims. Just like we spend money on coffee, on the gym, on everything else, let's spend on our mosque and our religious institutions. We can't live a successful life in the West without our mosques and without our Islamic centers and Islamic schools and charitable organizations. Let's give. And also, don't forget your friends and family members across the ocean, overseas. Let's give to them in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Libya, in Yemen, in Syria, in Iran, in Afghanistan, If you're well off in the West, give them as well. Share some of your wealth. Take care of your family members. Take care of your distant relatives. Take care of friends. And even those who you don't know. Allah has bestowed upon you a gift. Share that gift so that it is not taken from you. And number 10, don't disconnect from the East. Don't forget your Hajj. Don't forget your Umrah. Don't forget your Ziyarah. You could be living in the West. You live in the West. And you live a successful life in the West. But you have to stay connected by going to Hajj, by going to Umrah, by going to Ziyarah. These things you should not neglect. It should be on your mind, at least one of them a year. Either Hajj or Umrah or Ziyarah. Come for Ziyarah, visit your Imams, pay allegiance to your Imams, reconnect with the Ahlul Bayt. Come to the Ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Come and renew your allegiance to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. How grand is Imam Hussein when he has a Ziyarah in every occasion. In every occasion. In mid-Sha'ban, there's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. In Rajab, first of Rajab, there's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. In mid-Rajab, there's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. On the day of Arafah, there's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. On the days of Eid, there's a ziyarah for Imam Hussein. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jal wants us to stay connected to our Imam. Because Imam Hussein is very much in faith. He plays a major role in our faith, in our school of thought. Let's not forget him. Let's not forget what Imam Hussein alayhi salam has done for us. So we give for him as well. So we stay connected with him. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Tonight is the eve of Ashura, and we remember an infant, a child. You know, when you go to someone's home and you take a bouquet of flowers, you pick the most beautiful flowers there is in the store, and you take it to that person's home, the person who you're visiting. But you pick the nicest flower and you put it on top of the bouquet, the one that stands out. Imam Hussein alayhi salam gave a bouquet of flowers on the day of Ashura. His brother Al-Abbas, his nephew Al-Qasim, his son Ali Al-Akbar, the finest of his companions, and the companions of Rasulullah, and the companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen. But on top of this beautiful bouquet, he wanted to put a tiny small little bouquet, a tiny small little flower that stands out. Abdullah al-Radi'. Imam Hussein alayhi salam put on his armor, put on his shield, he wore his sword. He was about to enter the battlefield. His sister Zainab came to him. Akhi Aba Abdullah, your infant is dying from thirst. He's dying from thirst. Do something about it. Al-Rabab, his mother, she had brought the child to Sayyidah Zainab. She told him, take your child. This child belongs to you. I cannot breastfeed him. And he's dying. Sayyidah Zainab brought the child to Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Hussein took off his shield, took off his armor, put down his sword. He brought the child without a weapon, meaning I'm not here to fight you. Show some mercy. Show some compassion. He came to them and he said, if I am guilty of wrongdoing, then what wrongdoing has this child committed? This infant has committed. If you won't give me water, give water to this child. The enemy soldiers, they huddle. Someone said, let's give him water. Someone else said, let's kill the father. Let's kill them. Umar ibn Sa'd looked to Harmala. Harmala was known for shooting arrows. He said, اقطع نزاع القوم. Ya Harmala, اقطع نزاع القوم. End the dispute. There should be no argument. End the dispute. Harmala knew what Umar ibn Sa'd was saying. He knew that he was saying kill, make a kill. He said, Al-walid am al-walad. Should I kill the father or should I kill the son? He told him, Ama tara bayad nahr al-tif. Do you not see how white the neck of the child is? It means go for the neck, go for the child. Harmala says that on the day of Ashura, I shot 3 arrows. One, it landed in the eye of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. The second landed in the chest of Imam Hussein. But the one that broke my heart was the 3rd arrow that landed in the neck of Abdullah. It pierced from one side and came out the other. He said, I threw the arrow, it pierced from one side through the other. The child started shaking and struggling like a bird being slaughtered. Imam Hussein, all of a sudden, he saw blood dripping from the neck of his son Abdullah. He gathered the neck, he gathered the blood, and he threw it to the sky. And he said, Allahumma la yakunu hadha ahwanu alayk, radi'i ahwanu alayk min fasil. Meaning, oh Allah, I hope that this is not lighter than the camel of the people of Thamud when they slaughtered a camel. You destroyed that tribe. Don't take this lightly. I hope that this is not taken lightly. هون بي ما نزل علي أنه بعين الله. I seek refuge in knowing that Allah is watching and He is looking over what is happening to me. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he hid the child underneath his clothing. He came back to the camp. His daughter Sukaina, she greets him, my father, Abba, هل سقيت أخي الماء وهل بقي من الماء شيء? Did you quench the thirst of my brother? And is there any water remaining? He said, Haki akhaki madbuha. Take your brother slain. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. نسألك اللهم وندعوك باسمك العلي الأعظم الأعز الأجل الأكرم يا الله. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا عيبا إلا سترته، ولا خوفا إلا آمنته، ولا رزقا إلا بسطته، ولا شملا إلا جمعته، ولا مرضا إلا شفيته، ولا غائبا إلا حفظته وأدنيته، ولا حاجة من حوائج الدنيا والآخرة لك فيها رضا ولنا فيها صلاح إلا قضيتها ويسرتها يا أرحم الراحمين. وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين.